The way in which we perceive, view, understand, and think about things is immensely important. It can so easily be the difference between suffering and enjoyment in an identical situation. The nature of our approach can amplify our suffering tenfold and conjure misery up out of thin air. The nature of our approach can minimize our suffering and maximize our happiness. The nature of our approach can lead to unnecessary suffering and misery. The nature of our approach can lead to varying levels of comfort, satisfaction, fulfillment, meaning, enjoyment, well-being, and happiness. In an identical situation, those with differing approaches can experience wildly different proportions of pain and pleasure. The rational actor must adopt a rational approach. A rational approach that maximizes one's comfort, satisfaction, fulfillment, meaning, enjoyment, well-being, and happiness. In a word, pleasure. The approach that minimizes one's suffering, misery, agony, and torment. In a word, pain. This approach can be highly personalized, creative, and imaginative. It is not a way of interacting with your surroundings so much as it is a way of being the rational master of your own mind, the rational sovereign. It is about how you perceive things, view things, understand things, think about things. How you think about, understand, view, and perceive yourself, your actions, and your relationship with the wider world. The rational approach is applicable to anything and everything. Adopting such an approach is a rational imperative. It is a rational obligation that no wise being can ignore. It is the most fundamental art of domination, namely rational domination over the human mind. It is about asserting a desirable rational control, a rational sovereignty over your own mind, over its views, thinking, perceptions, and understandings on a very fundamental level. How it frames things, views itself, understands what it is. That is the rational approach. But like many claims to sovereignty, it does not go uncontested. Indeed, if it did go uncontested, there would be little need to talk about it. The epitome of rational desirability, that is the rational approach, has powerful enemies within one's own mind. The internal irrationalities, the enemies within, the forces which amplify suffering 100-fold and conjure it up from nothing. The internal voices, views, understandings, perceptions, ideas, thoughts, tendencies, and urges that exemplify irrationality and induce great suffering. The rational actor must embrace a rational approach and crush the internal irrationalities. Care, worry, stress, shame, fear, anxiety, and insecurity are not inherently examples of internal irrationalities, but very often are. When these forces are irrational, the rational approach must crush them. These irrationalities will amplify suffering where it exists and conjure it up where it does not. They will get in the way of one's capacity for pleasure time and time again. They are the enemies of the rational actor. They are the enemies within, and they must be crushed. Many of our greatest enemies are within our own minds. The internal irrationalities, the forces which seek to hurt us from within, the rationally undesirable influences that induce misery, prevent pleasure, and lead us astray. We must remember that the enemies of our well-being lurk within our own minds. We must crush them. We must embrace rationality and wage internal war against these irrationalities. We must secure rational sovereignty. We must crush them each and every time they try to rise up again, and one can be sure that they will. On occasion they will defeat us, but one defeat is never an excuse for more. With newfound courage, we will rise up stronger than ever before in our pursuit of the rationally desirable. We will exercise rationality and agency hand in hand to crush the internal irrationalities. We must adopt rational approaches. We must be creative and imaginative in our personalized application of them. We must think rationally and wisely. We must not be illogical or irrational. The complexity of this internal warfare demands nuanced consideration and flexibility in our application. But that rational approach can and will triumph, and it is our job to make sure that it does. We must defeat the enemy within. We must defeat the internal irrationalities. Victory and defeat are the difference between great pleasure and great pain. One can either be dominated by harmful internal irrationalities, or one can crush those irrationalities, adopt a rational approach, and become the rational sovereign, the master of their own mind. For the rational actor there is no choice here, only an imperative. Some of our greatest enemies lie within. We would be wise to crush them. Crush the internal irrationalities that amplify your suffering and conjure up misery out of nothingness. Adopt a rational approach. Feel no more misery than you must.